Dish the Nerves, the podcast where you keep calm and lead on. I am Rekha Matthew, your host for this episode. Today, I am so excited to have Vanessa King as a very wonderful guest. She has been a part of Toastmasters International for 16 years, holding various leadership positions from club president all the way to district director. During her time in leadership, she played a key role in helping her division become the first to achieve the president's distinguished status in that year. Beyond Toastmasters, Vanessa is a teacher and local counselor with a strong commitment to community development and public service. Her background in education and local government brings a unique perspective to leadership. And today, she is here to share with us how those leadership lessons translate into everyday life. Welcome, Vanessa, to our podcast. We are so excited to have you.
Thank you for having me, Rekha. I'm really excited to be talking with you today.
Great. So, to start things off, I am really interested to know what initially drew you to Toastmasters International and what kept you going for 16 years?
Well, I first heard about Toastmasters International through a radio interview that some members of a club in Mole Valley had done. And I thought, gee, that sounds like fun. I wonder if there's a club near me. And sure enough, there was one within walking distance. And I thought it would be an opportunity to meet people who, weren't teachers, weren't mothers of young children, so I could have conversations with people in a completely different sphere. I found an incredibly welcoming group of people who made me feel that my presence was welcome. I think I stayed simply because I met just. How do I say this? I stayed because it's a constant learning opportunity. I'm always meeting new people, hearing speeches, learning about people and seeing them grow and change. I found, although my first reason for walking in was to meet new people, I found it was really helpful for understanding how I was coming across as a teacher. And then when I had the opportunity to take on leadership positions, I found my self-confidence was growing almost, day by day, and I was capable of doing so much more.
That is amazing. Yeah, I can second that, having been part of the Toastmasters Club for a while now. I've noticed that you've coached like speakers, preparing everything from like conference talks to technical
Yeah.
presentations. And we all know that emotions like fear and imposter syndrome are quite common when it comes to public speaking. So I just want to know, how do you usually coach people through these emotions when they're preparing to either lead or deliver a big speech?
Well, I think it's important to acknowledge that those fears and that anxiety is completely normal. Our brains are not that well evolved. We're still those creatures that had to run away from things that were going to kill us. And definitely putting your head above the parapet, not just, your physical presence on the stage, but the message that you have. You're putting yourself out there and you're being vulnerable. And that's really scary. And it's quite natural for our bodies to want to react in a way that says, get me out of here, I'm not safe. So I like to start by acknowledging that those fears are really quite normal. And the progress or the pathway that I take people on is to recognize that actually your speech, your presentation is not about you. It's about the message and it's about the audience. So if you can focus more on that and less on yourself, you can manage those nerves quite well. I mean, for me this morning, before I came on to your show, I was really nervous. There's no way around it. I was really, really nervous, but I acknowledge that. And I know that this podcast is about the message and about the audience. And so that's what I focus on.
That's amazing. And yeah, I think as you mentioned that you guide people through those vulnerable moments when they're preparing for their speeches, brings me to the next question, which is like, has there been a difficult or a vulnerable moment in your Toastmasters journey in the last 16 years that has really transformed you as a person as well as a leader in your day-to-day career?
I've thought about this question quite deeply, actually, because obviously in 16 years there's a lot that's happened. And I would say the standout episode for me. It's more than one thing. Um, I had to, how do I put this? I had to make sure, remove an elected officer from their office. And that was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. This person's behavior had a negative impact on me personally, but on the team around them, and had done so for several years. And it fell to me that I had to be the one to remove them from office. And looking back, I really wish I had done it better. I wish I'd done it differently. I think I could have been much more supportive and empathetic to the person, but I was very emotional and it was very difficult. And I think that looking back on that time makes me a better leader, because I have seen that it doesn't matter what level of leadership you're at. We are all humans and we all have that emotion inside us. We all need to find strategies and ways of dealing with that emotion so that you can be effective as a leader and do the right thing. Now, I look back on that decision and I don't regret the decision. I know it was the right thing to do. I just think that I could have done it better. Now that I'm a more experienced leader, I can have those difficult, those fierce conversations in a more effective way. But back then, it was really hard.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that. And I think as you grow in your leadership journey, be it with Toastmasters or with your background in education and public
Mm,
service, an emotion like empathy or compassion for situation
yeah.
like this screams out loud. What role does empathy play in leadership and public speaking? And how do you sort of cultivate that as a skill?
So for me, empathy is absolutely fundamental to my leadership style. I think that there are some leaders, some political leaders, business leaders, who feel that leadership is about pushing people where they think the people should go. I believe that effective leaders are those who help people get to where they want to go. They're the ones who say, I know the path. This is the way we should go to get to where you want to be.
Mm,
And you can only do that by having empathy. And I think that you can only cultivate empathy by listening to people, listen to them more than you talk to them in
yeah.
some ways. You know, you listen to the conversations that people are having before you step onto the stage. Okay, so for example, when I'm chairing a meeting, I will go and speak to my committee members and see how they are. You know, talk to them about what's going on in their personal lives, or, you know, mention some project or some investigation that might be happening, just to connect with those committee members before I get up there and chair that meeting. And that creates a relationship between us, even though we may be have different ideas about what should be done. I'm chairing the meeting. I need to bring us all together. And in order to do that, you have to have empathy, and you've got to talk to people and listen to what they're saying to you, listen to those conversations in order to cultivate it.
Yeah, so good listening skills, having empathy
Absolutely.
through that, I think is quite
Mm,
important, as you mentioned.
mm.
It's great. So, what advice would you offer someone who has just started their journey with Toastmasters and dreams of becoming like a confident leader or an empathetic leader as you are in their respective fields?
Well, I think that being a confident leader is an ongoing journey. I think if you expect to be confident, then you've stopped learning and you will stagnate. So I think that being confident is an ongoing thing. I often feel unconfident in what I'm doing, but I will do things that to mitigate that lack of confidence. I'll read, I'll ask questions, I will practice. And that's what a Toastmasters club provides for anyone who wants to improve. The Toastmasters Club is a safe environment where you can test out your ideas and strategies. You know, you'll be giving a presentation at work, and that's not the place to try something new because the stakes are so much higher there. But
Yeah.
at a Toastmasters Club, you can take risks knowing that you are in a supportive environment where people will give you honest feedback if you ask for it. They won't. If a good club won't whitewash their evaluations and their feedback of you, they will tell you where you can improve and where you did really well. That which reminds me of something that built up my confidence in my club. I must have given probably my first 10, 12 speeches perhaps, when I suddenly figured out that when people were giving me feedback, they weren't saying it just to be nice. People don't write feedback or give you an evaluation and say nice things about you just to be nice. They say it because they mean it. And if they don't like what you did, they just won't say anything. Unless you say to them, look, what was it that I could have done better? They'll say, well, really? But they'll tell you, right? But they won't just volunteer that you did something badly. But they just won't say anything if they think it wasn't very good. So I thought, well, people are actually being honest to me when they tell me what I've done well and what could be better. So I'll just take that on board. So a person who is just joining their club and wants to become a confident leader, my first thing would be people are honest when they give you their feedback. They're not just saying things to make you feel good. Well, they might be, but it's not just that. A Toastmasters club is a great place to take risks and to try something new and take up all of the opportunities that are available to you in a club. And a Toastmasters club is so much more than public speaking. It really is. All of those opportunities of club leadership, of district leadership, they all come together to help you develop your skills as a confident leader and public speaker.
And also, just on the point you mentioned, because evaluation is such a big part of Toastmasters, where you provide feedback, and we literally trained how to provide feedback, which is so important in our work environment, in our personal life. When you sort of have to communicate with others about something that they did, you always have a framework to fall back on. So I think fantastic way to just like train your ability to provide feedback to others, be it constructive.
Absolutely. Yeah, I found feedback and evaluation really helped me in parents' evening as a teacher, right? I've got 5 minutes to tell a parent about their child and to hear what the child thinks that they could do better. So it's fantastic. It's like I've got my 2 to 3 minutes, I've got my structure, it's all good. I'm absolutely totally snappy when it comes to parent-teacher evenings.
Yeah, actually, was the question that I also wanted to ask you was, what are some specific strategies or frameworks that you use from Toastmasters in your daily life across your career and your parenting, and just in general? We didn't mention about evaluations, but are there any like quick strategies, frameworks that you fall back on to take into your daily life?
Well, I was thinking about this one, and I've had the opportunity as a local councillor to attend public meetings, and they can be really scary because, of course, it's like table topics on steroids. You know the basic theme of what the meeting is about, and therefore the sorts of questions that you expect to get. But ultimately, you don't know what they're going to ask you. And I was always thinking about that good structure, point, reason, example, point, or thinking about what the audience needs to hear, being honest and vulnerable. I had a question once where someone said, "Why can't you just say no?" And I had to say, I can't just say no because we work under a legislative framework. The law says I can't just say no, was essentially my message. And I could feel a sort of shift in the room because I was being very honest with them, acknowledging the question, but giving them really solid response that was grounded in empathy for where they were coming from, because they wanted me to just say no. But I can't, as much as I might want to, I can't. So you have to give them that sort of response. But I really love table topics. Table topics was so helpful for that because it gives you that practice in that structure for answering those difficult questions. So definitely table topics for public meetings, chairing meetings. I'm chair of the planning committee here in Guildford Borough, and I definitely rely on my Toastmasters skills to do that one. Listening to people, being the one, or being authoritative, but ensuring that everyone has an opportunity to have their say, because essentially that's what a good chair does. Make sure that people feel that they've had their say and that the decision that's come to is, maybe not everyone agreed with the decision, but everyone feels that they had their opportunity to have an input into the decision. And I learned that skill by being a district director, Yeah, because you chair meetings and they can be quite public and quite stressful at times. But I definitely learnt chairing skills through being a district leader.
Yeah, I think that's a very important skill as a leader as well, to make sure everyone feels heard and be a part of the decision that you're taking as a combined entity. Great. As my last question, I just want to know if there are any go to tips you have for someone who's preparing their first big speech, be it in their company, be it on a public platform, or just like a speech at their wedding. Are there any like specific go to tips that you would provide someone?
Ditch the nerves. I don't think it's, in some ways, I don't think it's, acknowledge your nerves. Acknowledge your nerves and remember that what you're saying is for your audience and that your message is bigger than you are.
Okay, that's a good one. Thank you. Vanessa, that brings us to the end of the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your incredible journey and your insights on communication, empathy, as well as public service is truly inspirational. And I hope the audience can go away and reflect on and hopefully act on some of the strategies that you've mentioned within this talk. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Rekha.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us and tuning into this podcast. We hope to see you all next episode. Until then, keep calm and ditch the nerves.